at a moment when intellectual pleasures await you. Your German grammar is on the table. Pray, open it at page 15, and we will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German grammar as he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays stress on your German when he's leaving for town.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious that I think he cannot do quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health. His gravity of demeanor should be commended in one so competitively young as he is. I know no one with a higher sense of duty or responsibility.
I suppose that is why he often looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in his conversations. You must remember how anxious he is about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometime. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I'm sure you certainly would. You know German and geology and things of that kind influence a man very much.
I do not think that even I could produce any effect on a character that, according to his own brother's admission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I do not desire to reclaim him. I am not much in favor of this modern mania of turning bad people into good at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so shall he reap. Put away your diary, Cecily. I don't really see why you keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles the things that have never happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels Mudie sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novel, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I don't like novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
Well, the good ended happily and the bad one happily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so. But it seems very unfair. And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. Unfortunately, the manuscript was abandoned. I use that word in the sense of lost or mislaid. To your work, child. These speculations are profitless.
But I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Oh, Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
How are we this morning? Miss Prism, you are, I trust, well.
Oh, Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
No, dear Miss Prism, I know that, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that and not my German lesson when the rector came in.
I hope, Cecily, you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from bees. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, has not returned from town yet.
No, we do not expect him till Monday afternoon.
Oh, yes, he usually likes to spend his Sunday in London. He is not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man, his brother, seems to be. But I will disturb Egeria and her pupil no longer.
Egeria, My name is Letitia, Doctor.
Letitia, from the Latin for joy. Classical illusion merely drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both, no doubt, at evensong.
I think I will take a stroll with you, Doctor. I find I do have a headache coming on. I think a walk would do it good.
With pleasure, Letitia, with pleasure. We might go as far as the schools.
Oh, that would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It was somewhat too sensational. You know, even these metallic problems have a melodramatic side.
Horrid political economy. Horrid geography. Horrid German.
Mr. Earnest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He has brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Earnest Worthing, B4, the Albany W. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He said he was anxious to speak to you privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come out here. I suppose you'd better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I have never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he will look just like everyone else. He does.
You are my little cousin Cecily, I am sure.
You are under some strange mistake. I am not little. In fact, I believe I am more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
I am not really wicked at all, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think that I am wicked.
If you are not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Of course, I have been rather reckless.
I am glad to hear it.
In fact, now that you mention it, I've been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that, though I am sure it must have been very pleasant.
It is much pleasanter being here with you.
I can't understand how you're here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back till Monday afternoon.
Oh, that is indeed a great disappointment. I'm obliged to go up by the first train on Monday morning. I have an appointment I'm anxious to miss.
Could you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment is in London.
Well, I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. But still, I think you had better wait till Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
Your emigrating. He's gone up to buy your outfit.
I certainly wouldn't let Jack buy my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
I don't think you will require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia, to Madame.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
The accounts I have received of the next world and Australia are not particularly encouraging. This world is good enough for me, cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I am not that. That is why I want you to reform. You might make that your wish then, if you don't mind, cousin Cecily.
I'm afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Then would you mind my reforming myself this afternoon?
It is rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You are looking a little worse.
That is because I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you. Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite at all unless I have a buttonhole first.
A Maréchal meal?
No, I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, cousin Cecily.
I don't think it can be right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things to me.
Then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says all good looks are a snare.
They are a snare that every sensible man would like to be caught in.
I don't think I would care to catch a sensible man. I shouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, Dr. Chasuble. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand, a womanthrope never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase. The precept, as well as the practice of the primitive church, is distinctly against matrimony.
Now that is obviously why the primitive church has not lasted up to the present day. And you do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
Is not a man equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive except to his wife.
And often, I am told, not even to her.
Well, that depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended upon. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are green. Oh, I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruit. Oh, but where is Cecily?
Perhaps she followed us to the schools.
Oh, Mr. Worthing!
Mr. Worthing?
We did not expect you till Monday afternoon. This is a surprise.
I have returned sooner than expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you are well.
Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother!
Shameful debts and extravagance.
Still leading his life of pleasure.
Dead.
Brother, Ernest, dead.
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it.
Mr. Worthing, you have my sincere condolence. You have at least the consolation of knowing that you were always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He had many faults, but it is a sad, sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Ah, were you with him in the end?
No, he died abroad, in Paris, in fact. I had a telegram last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
So shall he reap.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. None of us are perfect. I myself am particularly susceptible to draughts. Were you with him in the end?
No, he seemed to have expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? I fear that hardly speaks to any serious state of mind at the last. You would no doubt wish me to make some slight allusion to this tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the manna and the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion, joyful or, in the present case, distressing. I have preached it at harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmations, on days of humiliation and festal days. The last time I preached it was in the cathedral as a charity sermon for the Society for the Prevention of Discontent among the upper orders. The bishop, who was present, was much struck by some of the analogies I drew.
That reminds me, you mentioned christenings, I think, Dr. Chasuble. I suppose you know how to christen, all right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, of course, I mean, you are continually christening, aren't you?
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I have often spoken to the poor classes on the subject, and they do not seem to understand what thrift is.
Mr. Worthing, is there any particular infant in whom you are interested? Your brother was, I believe, unmarried.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Well, most people who live for pleasure
But it is not for any child's dear doctor. I'm very fond of children. No, the fact is, I would like to be christened myself. This afternoon, if you have nothing better to do.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you have been christened already.
Well, I don't remember anything about it.
Grave doubts on the subject.
Oh, I certainly intend to have. Of course, I don't know if the thing would bother you in any way, or if you think I'm a little too old for it now.
Oh, not at all. The sprinkling and indeed the complete immersion of adults is perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
You need have no apprehensions. Sprinkling is all that is necessary. Or, I mean, advisable. Our weather is so changeable. At what time would you like the ceremony performed?
Oh, I might trot round about 5, if that would suit you.
Perfectly, perfectly. In fact, I have 2 similar ceremonies to perform at that time. A case of twins that occurred in one of the outlying cottages on your own estate. Poor Jenkins, the carter. Most hard-working man.
I don't think it would be much fun to be christened along with other babies. It would be childish. Would half past 5 do?
Admirably, admirably. And now, dear Mr. Worthing, I will intrude no longer into this house of sorrow. I merely beg you not to be too much bowed down by grief. Often what seem to us bitter trials are blessings in disguise.
Well, this seems to me a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack, I am pleased to see you back. But what horrid clothes you have got on. Do go and change them.
Cecily!
My child, my child.
What is the matter, Uncle Jack? Do look happy. You look as if you had a toothache. And I've got such a wonderful surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother.
Who?
Your brother Ernest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
No, what nonsense. I haven't got a brother.
Oh, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he is still your brother, and you wouldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll tell him to come out. And you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are joyful tidings.
After we have all been resigned to his loss, his sudden return seems to me peculiarly distressing.
My brother is in the dining room? I don't know what it all means. I think it's perfectly absurd. Good heavens!
Brother John, I have come down from town to tell you that I am very sorry for all the trouble that I have caused you, and I intend to live a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you are not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. I think his coming down here disgraceful. He knows perfectly well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There is some good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury. He goes to visit so often, and surely there must be much good in one who is kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by their pain.
Oh, he has been talking to you about Bunbury, has he?
Oh yes, he's told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Bunbury. Well, I won't have him talk to you about Bunbury or about anything else. It's enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
Well, I must admit the faults are all on my side. I must admit that Brother John's coldness to me is peculiarly painful. I expected a more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering it is the first time I have ever been here.
Uncle Jack, if you do not shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me.
Never, never, never.
This is the last time I shall ever do it. Oh!
It is marvelous, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation. I think we might leave the two brothers together.
Cecily, you will come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You have done a beautiful action today, child.
We must not be too premature in our judgments.
I feel very happy.
unusual allergy. You must get out of this place as soon as possible. I don't allow any bunburying here.
I have put Mr. Earnest's things in the room next to yours, sir. I suppose that is all right?
What?
Mr. Earnest's luggage, sir. I have unpacked it and put it in the room next to your own.
His luggage?
Oh, yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Earnest has been suddenly called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful lie you are, Jack. I have not been called back to town at all.
Yes, you have.
I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree.
Oh, I can quite understand that.
Cecily is a darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous in them. It's perfectly absurd to be in mourning for a man who's actually staying in your house as a guest for an entire week. I call it grotesque.
You are certainly not staying with me as a guest or anything else. You have got to leave at once by the 4:05 train.
I certainly won't leave you so long as you're in mourning. I should think it most unfriendly if I did. You would stay with me if I were in mourning, I suppose. I should think it most unkind if you didn't.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, if you're not too long. I never saw anybody take so long to dress and with such little results.
At any rate, that is better than being always overdressed as you are.
If I'm occasionally a little overdressed, I make up for it by always being immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous, your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden utterly absurd. However, you must catch the 4:05 train, and I hope you will have a pleasant journey back to town. This bunburying, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
I think that's been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily. That's everything. But I must see her before I go and make arrangements for another Bunbury.
There she is.
Oh, I knew they came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He has gone to order the dog cart for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's going to send me away.
Have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It's a very painful party.
It is always painful to part from people whom one has known for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
Can wait for them for 5 minutes?
Yes.
I hope, Cecily, that I shall not offend you if I state quite openly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you'll allow me, I will copy your remarks in my diary.
If you really keep a diary, I'd give anything to look at it. May I?
Oh no. You see, it is simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you will order a copy, but pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on, I am quite ready for more. Oh, don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell cough.
Cecily, ever since I looked upon your wild and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily,
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
tell him to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying on to next week at the same hour.
I don't care about Jack, and I don't care about anybody in the whole world but you. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy. Of course. Why, we have been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months.
Yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you of course have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And of course a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Darling, and when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or the other. And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you under this dear old tree here. The next day, I bought this little ring in your name. And this is the bangle that the true love knot I promised you always to wear.
Should I give you this? It's very pretty, is it not?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given for your leading such a bad life. And here is the box in which I keep all your dear letters.
But my own dear sweet Cecily, I never wrote you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that. I remember only too well that I was forced to write your letters for you. I wrote yours 3 times a week and sometimes oftener.
Oh, do let me read them, Cecily.
I couldn't possibly. They would make you far too conceited. The 3 you wrote me after I had broken off the engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
Was our engagement ever broken off?
Of course it was, on the 22nd of last March. You could see the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather continues charming.
Why on earth would you break it off? What on earth have I done? I have done nothing. Cecily, I'm very hurt indeed to hear that you had broken off our engagement, particularly when the weather was so charming.
You would hardly have been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
What a perfect angel you are, Cecily.
You dear romantic boy. I hope your hair curls naturally, does it?
Yes, darling, with a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
You'll never break off our engagement again, will you, Cecily?
I don't think I could break it off now that I've actually met you. Besides, of course, there is the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You mustn't laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Earnest. There is something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Earnest.
But, Cecily, do you mean to say that you couldn't love me if I had some other name?
What name?
No, any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
I don't like the name of Algernon.
My own dear, sweet, loving little darling. I don't see what you'd object to in the name of Algernon. It's a rather aristocratic name. More than half of the fellows in the bankruptcy court are called Algernon. But really, Cecily, if my name were Algy, wouldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear I should not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here is, I suppose, thoroughly experienced in all the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh, yes, Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He's never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him at once on a most important christening. I mean on most important business.
Oh.
I shan't be away more than half an hour.
Considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th, that I only met you today for the first time, it seems rather hard that you should leave me for so long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I must enter his proposal in my diary.
Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Worthing. On very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Is it Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Pray, ask the lady to come out here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon. And you can bring tea.
Yes,
Miss Fairfax. I suppose one of the many Gould elderly women who are associated with Uncle Jack and some of his philanthropic work at London. I don't quite like women who are interested in philanthropic work. I think it is so forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew? What a very sweet name. Something tells me we are going to be
My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh, it is strange. She never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How very secretive of him. It grows more interesting now. I'm not quite sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. Cecily, I'm very fond of you. I've liked you ever since I met you. But I am bound to state that now that I know that you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish that you were, well, just a little older than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly...
Oh, pray do. I think that whenever one has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
Well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish that you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honor. Disloyalty would be as impossible to him as deception. But even men of the noblest possible moral character are extremely susceptible to the influence of the physical charms of others. Modern, no less than ancient history provides us with many most painful examples of what I refer to. Were it not so, indeed, history would be quite unreadable.
Pardon, Gwedolen, did you say Ernest?
Yes.
Oh, but it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It's his brother, his elder brother.
But Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I'm sorry to say they have not been on good terms for a long time.
Now that accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I've never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. Of course, you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I am going to be his.
I beg your pardon.
Dearest Gwedolen, there's no reason why I should make a secret of it to you. A little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
My darling Cecily, I feel there must be some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
I'm afraid you must be under some misconception. This proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is certainly very curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you wish to verify me, pray do so. I never travel without my diary. I shall always have something sensational to read on the train. I'm so sorry, dear Cecily, if it's any disappointment to you, but it appears as if I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I could tell you, dear Gwedolen, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have got into, I will never reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you? This is no time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
Well, I am glad to say that I have never seen a spade. It is obvious that our social spheres have been widely different.
Shall I lay tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
Oh, 5 counties. I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
Suppose that is why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden this is, Miss
any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I felt that you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
To me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Ernest!
Gwendolen, darling.
A moment, if I may. Are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To dear little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. I knew there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arm is at present round your waist is my dear guardian, Mr. John Worthing. This is Uncle Jack. Jack.
Oh!
Here is Ernest.
My own love.
A moment, Ernest. May I ask you, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolen!
Yes, to good heavens, Gwendolen. I mean, to Gwendolen.
Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I said there was some slight error, Miss Cardew. The gentleman who is currently embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrieff.
Algernon Moncrieff. Oh!
I cannot deny it.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name certainly is John. It has been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
My poor, wounded Cecily.
My sweet, wronged Gwendolen.
You will call me sister, won't you?
There's just one question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there is just one question I wish to be permitted to put to you, if I may. Where is your brother, Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother, Ernest, and it is a matter of some importance of us to know where your brother, Ernest, is present.
Gwendolen, Cecily, it is very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. It is the first time in my life that I've ever been reduced to such a painful position. I'm really quite inexperienced at doing anything of the kind. However, I will tell you quite frankly that I have no brother, Ernest. I have no brother at all. I never had a brother in my life, and I certainly have not the smallest intention of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Had you never a brother of any kind?
Never, not even of any kind.
I'm afraid it is quite clear, dear Cecily, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl suddenly to find herself in, is it?
Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No. Men are so cowardly, aren't they?
Well, this ghastly state of things is what you would call bunburying, I suppose.
Yes, and what a wonderful Bunbury it is as well. The most wonderful Bunbury I have ever had in my life.
Well, you have no right whatsoever to bunbury here.
It is absurd. One has the right to Bunbury wherever one chooses. Every serious Bunburyist knows that.
Serious bunburyist? Good heavens!
One must be serious about something if one wants to have any amusement in life. I happen to be serious about Bunbury. What on earth you are serious about, I haven't the remotest idea. Not everything, I should fancy, of such a trivial nature.
Well, the only small satisfaction I have in the whole of this wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to run down to the country quite so often as you used to, dear Algie. A very good thing, too.
And your brother is a little off-colour, isn't he, Jack? You ought to be able to disappear up to London as often as your frequent custom was. And not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct toward Miss Cardew, I must say that your taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl of that nature is quite inexcusable, to say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
I can see no possible defence for your deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced lady such as Miss Fairfax. say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwedolen, that is all. I love her.
I simply wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There is certainly no chance of you marrying Miss Cardew.
I don't think there is much likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being engaged.
Well, that is no business of yours.
It was my business. I don't talk about it. Only people like stockbrokers talk about their business, and then merely at dinner parties.
How you can sit there, calmly eating muffins while we are in this horrible trouble, I can't make out. You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. Butter would probably get on my cuff. One must always eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
I say, it's perfectly heartless you're eating muffins at all, under the circumstances.
When I'm in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I'm in really great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything but food and drink. At the present moment, I'm eating muffins because I'm unhappy. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
What's no reason why you should eat them all in that greedy way?
I wish you would have tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
Oh, good heavens, I suppose a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden.
You just said it was perfectly harmless to eat muffins.
I said it was perfectly heartless of you under the circumstances. That's a very different thing.
That may be, but the muffins are the same.
I wish to goodness you would go.
You can't possibly ask me to go without having some dinner first. Never goes without their dinner, except for vegetarians and people like that. Besides, I've just made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Earnest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you forget that nonsense, the better. I made arrangements this morning with Dr. Chasuble to be christened myself at 5:30, and I naturally will take the name of Ernest. Gwedolen would wish it. We can't both be christened Ernest, it's absurd. Besides, I have the perfect right to be christened if I like. There is no evidence at all that I have ever been christened by anybody. I should think it extremely probable that I never was, and so does Dr. Chasuble. It's entirely different in your case. You have been christened already.
Yes, but I have not been christened for years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That's the important thing.
Quite so. So I know my constitution can stand it. Even though I'm not quite sure about your ever having been christened, I must say I think it terribly dangerous you're venturing in on us now. You can hardly have forgotten that someone very closely connected to you was very nearly carried off in Paris this week by a severe chill.
Yes, but you said yourself that a severe chill was not hereditary.
It used to be, I know, but I dare say it is now. Science is always making the most wonderful improvements.
Nonsense. You are always talking nonsense.
Jack, you are at the muffins again. I wish you wouldn't. There are only 2 left.
But I hate tea cake.
Well, then why on earth do you allow tea cake to be served up for your guests? What idea do you have of hospitality?
Algernon, I have already told you to go. I don't want you here. Why won't you go?
I haven't quite finished my tea yet. And there is still 1 muffin left.
They did not follow us at once into the house as anybody else would have done seems to me to show that they have some sense of shame left.
They have been eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
They don't seem to notice us at all.
now.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
A most distasteful one.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing.
Very particular to ask you. Much depends on your reply. Gwedolen, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrieff, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to meet my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have the opportunity of meeting you.
That certainly seems a satisfactory explanation.
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't. But still, it does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you might have the opportunity of coming up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
Well, I have the gravest doubts on the subject, but I intend to crush them. No skepticism. Their explanations appear to be satisfactory, particularly Mr. Worthing's. That seems to me to have the stamp of truth upon it.
I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrieff said. His voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity.
You think we should forgive them?
Yes. I mean, no.
True, I had forgotten. There are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. Which of us should tell them the task is not a pleasant one?
Could we not both speak at the same time?
Oh, an excellent idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take the time from me?
Certainly.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names? Is that all? But we are going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing.
I am.
Please believe you are ready to face this fearful ordeal.
I am.
How absurd to talk of the equality of the sexes, where questions of self-sacrifice are concerned. Men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
There are moments of physical courage of which we women know absolutely nothing.
Darling.
Lady Bracknell?
Oh, good heavens.
Gwedolen, what is the meaning of this?
Merely that I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Come here. Sit down. Sit down immediately. Hesitancy of any kind is a sign of mental decay in the young and physical weakness in the old. Apprised, sir, of my daughter's sudden flight by her trusty maid, whose confidence I purchased by means of a small coin, I followed her at once on a luggage train. Her unhappy father is, I am glad to say, under the impression that she is attending a more than usually lengthy lecture by the University Extension Scheme on the influence of permanent income upon thought. I do not propose to undeceive him. Indeed, I have never undeceived him on any question. I would consider it wrong. But you will be quite aware that all communications between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment. On this point, as indeed on all points, I am firm.
I am engaged to be married to Gwedolen, Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the kind, sir. And as for Algernon,
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
may I ask if it is in this house that your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides?
No, Bunbury doesn't live here. Bunbury is somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury is dead.
When did Mr. Bunbury die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
No, I killed Mr. Bunbury this afternoon. I mean, poor Mr. Bunbury died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Bunbury, he was quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he the victim of some revolutionary outrage? I was not aware that Mr. Bunbury was interested in social legislation. If so, he's well punished for his morbidity.
No, my dear Aunt Augusta, I mean, he was found out. The doctors found out that Mr. Bunbury could not live. That is what I mean. So Bunbury died.
He seems to have had a very high opinion of his physician. But I'm glad, however, that he made up his mind at the last to some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. And now that we have finally got rid of this Mr. Bunbury, may I ask Mr. Worthing, who is this young person whose hand my nephew Algernon is holding in what seems a peculiarly unnecessary manner?
That lady is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I'm engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon.
Mr. Moncrieff and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I don't know. There is something peculiarly exciting in the air in this particular part of Hertfordshire. But the number of engagements that go on seem to me considerably above the proper average which statistics have laid down for our guidance. I think some preliminary inquiry on my part will not be out of place. Mr. Worthing, may I ask if Miss Cardew is at all connected with any of the larger railway stations? I merely desire information. Until yesterday, I had no idea that there were any families or persons whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Tomás Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, SW, Gervase Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Sporring Fifeshire, NB.
That sounds not unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always inspire confidence. And what proof have I of their authenticity?
I have carefully preserved the court guides of the period. They are open to your inspection, Lady Bracknell.
Oh, I have known strange errors in that publication.
Miss Cardew's family solicitors are Messrs. Markby, Markby, and Markby.
Markby, Markby, and Markby. Firm of the very highest position in their profession. Indeed, I have been told that one of the Mr. Markbys is occasionally to be seen at dinner parties. So far, I am satisfied.
Oh, how extremely kind of you, Lady Bracknell. I have also in my possession, you will be pleased to hear, certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, registration, vaccination, confirmation, and the measles, both the German and the English variety.
A life filled with incident, I see. Although perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I am myself not in favor of premature experiences. Come, Gwedolen. The hour approaches for our departure. We have not a moment to lose. As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I'd better ask if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
Oh, about £130,000 in the funds. That is all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell. So pleased to have seen you.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. £130,000. And in the funds. Miss Cardew. She seems a most attractive young lady now that I look at her. A few girls at the present age have any of the really solid qualities, the qualities which last and improve with time. We live, I regret to say, in an age of surfaces. Come here, my dear. Yes, quite as I expected. There are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The chief wants of our age are its want of principle and its want of profile. Chin a little higher, dear. Style largely depends on how the chin is worn. They're worn very high at present. Algernon?
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily's the sweetest, dearest, prettiest girl in the whole world. I don't care tuppence about social possibilities.
Ah, never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Now, you realize, of course, my dear, that Algernon has nothing but his debts to pay upon. But I do not approve of mercenary marriages. When I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of my own. But I never dreamed for a moment of allowing that to stand in my way. Well, I guess I shall have to give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cecily, you may kiss me.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
You may address me as Aunt Augusta for the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
The marriage, I think, can had better take place quite soon.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Speaking personally, I'm not in favour of long engagements. They give people the opportunity of finding out each other's character before marriage. Never advisable.
I beg your pardon, Lady Bracknell, but this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Cardew's guardian, and she cannot marry without my consent until she comes of age. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
Upon what grounds? Algernon is an extremely, I may almost say, ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. What more could one want?
It pains me very much, Lady Bracknell, to have to speak frankly to you about your nephew, but the fact is, I do not approve of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon? Impossible. He is an Oxonian.
I fear there can be no possible doubt about the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence in London on an important question of romance, he obtained admission to my house under the false pretense of being my brother. Under an assumed name, he drank, I've just been informed by my butler, an entire pint bottle of my Perrier Jouet Proved 89, a wine I was specially reserving for myself. Continuing his disgraceful deception, he succeeded in the course of the afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin. And what makes his conduct all the more heartless is that he was perfectly well aware from the first that I have no brother, that I never had a brother, and that I don't intend to have a brother, not even of any kind. I distinctly told him so myself yesterday afternoon.
Ahem. After careful consideration, I have decided entirely to overlook my nephew's conduct to you.
That is very generous of you, Lady Bracknell. My own decision, however, is unalterable. I decline to give my consent.
Come here, now. How old are you, child?
Well, I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 20 at evening parties.
You are quite right to make some slight alteration. Indeed, a woman should never be quite accurate about her age and so calculating. It's 18, but admitting to 20 at dinner party. Well, it will not be very long before you are of age and freed from the restraints of tutelage, so that I don't think your guardian's consent is, after all, a matter of any importance.
Pray, excuse me, Lady Bracknell, for interrupting you again, but I feel I must tell you that according to the terms of her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew does not legally come of age until she is 35.
I do not see that as a grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age. London society is filled with women of the very highest birth who have of their own free choice remained 35 a year. Lady Templeton is an instant in point. To my own knowledge, she's been 35 ever since she arrived at the age of 40. That was many years ago now. Indeed, I see no reason to believe that our own sweet Cecily may not be even still more attractive at the age you mentioned than she is at present. There will be a large accumulation of property.
Algie, could you wait for me till I was 35?
Of course I could, Cecily, you know I could.
Yes, I felt it instinctively. But I couldn't wait all that time. I hate waiting even 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me rather cross. I am not punctual myself, I know, but I do like punctuality in others. So waiting, even to be married, is quite out of the question.
And what is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrieff.
My dear Mr. Worthy, as Miss Cardew positively states that she cannot wait until she is 35, a remark which I'm bound to say seems to me to show a somewhat impatient nature, I would beg of you to reconsider your decision.
But, my dear Lady Bracknell, the decision is entirely within your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage with Gwedolen, I shall most gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You must be quite aware that what you propose is out of the question.
Then a passionate celibacy is all that any of us can look forward to.
That is not the destiny I propose for Gwedolen. Algernon can decide for himself. Come, We have missed 5, if not 6 trains already. To miss one more might expose us to comment on the car platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christenings.
Christenings? Is that not somewhat premature?
Both these gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
At their age, the idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excesses. Lord Bracknell would be highly displeased if he learned that this was how you wasted your time and money.
Am I to understand then that there are to be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I don't think, as things are now, that it would be of much practical value to either of us, Dr. Chasuble.
It grieves me to hear such things from you, Mr. Worthing. They savor of the heretical views of the Anabaptists. Views that I have completely refuted in 4 of my unpublished sermons. However, as your current mood seems to be one peculiarly secular, I will return to the church at once. Indeed, I have just been informed that for the last hour and a half, Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Miss Prism, did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I am on my way to join her.
Pray let me detain you for a moment. This matter may prove to be one of vital importance to Lord Bracknell and myself. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies and the very picture of respectability.
Obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
I am a celibate, madam.
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the last 3 years Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
Well, in spite of what I hear of her, I must see her at once. A letter be sent for.
She approaches. She is nigh.
I have been waiting in the vestry for you, dear Canon, for 1 hour and 3/4. Oh!
Prism. Come in, Prism. Prism. Where is that baby? 28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104 Upper Grosvenor Street, in charge of a perambulator which contained a baby of the male sex. Never returned. A few weeks later, through the elaborate investigation of the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was discovered at midnight, standing by itself in a remote corner of Bayswater. It contained the manuscript of a 3-volume novel of more than usually revolting sentimentality. But the baby wasn't there. Prism, where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I do not know. I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day that you mention, a day that is forever branded in my memory, I had planned to take the baby out in its perambulator. I also had with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag in which I had intended to place a manuscript of fiction that I had written in my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction, for which I can never forgive myself, I deposited the manuscript in the bassinet and the baby in the handbag.
But where did you deposit the handbag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, this is a matter of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag that contained that infant.
I left it in a cloakroom in one of the larger railway stations in London.
What railway station?
Victoria, the Brighton line.
I must retire to my room for a moment. Gwedolen, wait here for me.
I would wait here for you all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even
carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
Well, it seems to be mine. Oh, yes, here is the injury it occurred through the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus. Oh, younger and happier days. Oh, and here is the stain on the lining from the explosion of a temperance beverage. That happened in Leamington. And, here are my initials on the lock. I had forgotten. In an extravagant mood, I had them placed there. Oh, this is undoubtedly my bag. I am delighted to have it so unexpectedly returned to me. It has been a real inconvenience being without it all.
More is restored to you than this handbag. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes.
Mother! Oh, Mr. Worthing, I am unmarried.
Unmarried? I do not deny that is a serious blow. But, after all, who has the right to cast a stone against one who has suffered? Cannot repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why should there be one law for men and another for women? Mother, I forgive you.
Oh, Mr. Worthing, there is an error. There is the lady who can tell you who you really are.
No. I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me who I am?
I'm afraid that the news I have to give you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrieff, and consequently Algernon's elder brother.
She's elder brother? Then I have a brother after all. I knew I had a brother. I always said I had a brother. Cecily, how could you have doubted that I had a brother? Dr. Chasuble, my unfortunate brother. Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother. Gwedolen, my unfortunate brother. You young scoundrel, Algy. You will have to start treating me with more respect in the future. You've never behaved to me like a brother in all your life.
Well, not till today, old boy, I admit. I tried my best, however, though I was out of practice.
My own... What? Own? Are you? What is your Christian name now that you have become someone else?
Good heavens, I had quite forgotten that point. Your decision on the subject of my name is quite irrevocable, I suppose.
Oh, I never change, except in my affections.
Then the question had better be cleared up at once. Then, Aunt Augusta, a moment. At the time when Miss Prism left me in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been lavished upon you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I was christened, that's settled. Now, what name was I given? Let me know the worst.
Well, naturally, being the eldest son, you were christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
Oh. I cannot for the present moment recall what the general's Christian name was. I have no doubt he had one. He was eccentric, but only for 8 years. And that was the result of the Indian climate, marriage, indigestion, other things like that.
Algy, can't you recollect what our father's Christian name was?
My dear boy, we were never even on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
I suppose that his name would appear in the army list of the period, Aunt Augusta.
The general was essentially a man of peace, except in his domestic life. I have no doubt that his name would appear in any military directorate.
The army lists of the last 40 years are here. These delightful records would have been my constant study. Generals, Mallam, Maxbom, Nagley, what ghastly names they have. Markby, Migsby, Mobbs, Moncrieff, Lieutenant, 1840, Captain, Lieutenant, Colonel, Colonel, General, 1869, Christian names, Earnest, John. I always told you, Gwendolen, that my name was Earnest. Well, it is Earnest after all. I mean, it naturally is Earnest.
Yes, now I remember. The general was called Ernest.
to find out suddenly that all his life he has been speaking nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
I can, for I feel that you are sure to change.
Oh, my own one.
Letizia?
Frederick, at last!
Cecily,
At last.
Gwedolen, at last.
My nephew, you appear to be showing signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, I've now realized for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest.